Welcome, class, to chapter 2 of our child development class. In today's class, we're going to discuss the biological processes of child development. And what better way to start off this class that focuses on biological processes than with a little magic school bus?
Seatbelts, everyone! Please let this be a normal field trip with a friend. No way!
Cruising on down Main Street, you're relaxing, feeling good. Next thing that you know, you see what's in my neighborhood? Surfing on the sine wave, swinging through the storm. Take a left at Human Justin, take your second right back on the magic school bus. Alligator, I'm on the magic school bus. Make a plane turn to I'm magic school bus. Stop the river of love. I'm magic school bus. That's fine, baby. So stop your wings and to the seat. Come on in and don't be shy. Just to make your day complete. You might get baked into a pile on the magic school bus. Step inside, it's a wilder ride. Come on, ride on the magic school bus.
That was just a fun way to start the class. If you all don't know or never watched the Magic School Bus, this is just a fun cartoon that I would watch when I was younger. And what would happen is that the teacher, Miss Frizzle, and her students would go into this bus and they would have these adventures, these scientific adventures. And a lot of times they would go inside of the human body to understand how the body works. So that is what we're going to do today. And the bus's name is Liz. So hit it, Liz. Today we're going inside the human body to explore cells, genes, and chromosomes.
Seatbelts!
The first thing that we're going to talk about are chromosomes and genes. In our bodies are all made up of cells. Cells have their home base, which is the nucleus, and inside of the nucleus are chromosomes. And chromosomes are made up of DNA. And DNA contains genetic information. DNA is also shaped like a spiral staircase, which is pretty cool. And then we have genes. Genes are just the smaller sections of the DNA, as we see pictured here, and they contain hereditary information. Speaking of genes and reproduction, next up we're going to discuss how cells reproduce and are passed down through generations. And genes help cells to reproduce themselves. We are going to focus today on meiosis. And the reason why we're focusing on meiosis is because we're talking about child development. So we're trying to really understand how children are formed in the womb. And so when we're talking about meiosis, we're not talking about the cells that our body is made up of. We're talking about the cells that the reproductive organs are made up of. So for males, you have sperm cells, and for females, you have egg cells. What happens in meiosis is that the cells, whether they're sperm cells or egg cells, they duplicate their chromosomes. And you know, chromosomes are made up of DNA, and the DNA is made up of genes that hold the hereditary information. It divides twice, and then it forms 4 cells. Each of the cells that are formed, which are now 4 cells, they have half of the genetic material of the parent cell. Each egg or sperm cell has 23 unpaired chromosomes. You get that by the end of meiosis. The question is, why do you think that the sperm and the egg cells have 23 unpaired chromosomes? The reason is because the 23 unpaired chromosomes of the egg and the 23 unpaired chromosomes of the sperm, they come together to form 23 paired chromosomes. And that process, when an egg and a sperm come together, is called fertilization. And the new cell that is formed is called the zygote. When you combine the chromosomes of the mother and father, you really don't ever know what the child is going to look like, because each zygote is unique and it has unique genes based on the genetic information received from the egg and the sperm cell. Not only are their genes unique, but they also will have unique physical features. And so we have this source of variability would be meiosis. And the types of sources of variability that we're going to discuss today are looking at the difference between identical and fraternal twins. When we talk about identical twins are, another name for them is the monozygotic twins. The monozygotic twins that look at here at mono. Mono means one, which means there was one zygote and it split in half. So that means that if it was one zygote that split in half, that means that they will have the same genetic information and ultimately look alike, just like Tia and Tamara Mori on Sister Sister, which is now on Netflix now, so we get to all enjoy it. But if we have fraternal twins, another name for fraternal twins are dizygotic twins. And that means that there were two eggs. Look at di meaning two. That means two eggs were fertilized by different sperm. Or you could also have it where two different eggs were fertilized by the same sperm. So we've talked about genes, and I also want to mention how genes influence your physical characteristics. And so this next slide, we're going to discuss genes and physical characteristics. So that means we have to talk about genotype versus phenotype. When we're talking about genotype, we're focusing on the genetic material. So we're looking at DNA, we're looking at chromosomes. And based on the genotype, you get the phenotype. The genotype directly influences how someone or something is going to look. The phenotype are the observable characteristics. So for example, in this example, the genotype, this is the genotype for the color of a black rat. And as you can see, the color of the rat is black. The genotype directly enforces what this black rat is going to look like, what color it's going to be, and it is black. Same thing for eye color, for height, all of those things. Our genes directly influence how we are going to look, our phenotype. Next, we're going to move on to genetic principles, still in the gene family. So let's talk about the dominant and recessive gene principle. So we have two types of genes. One is dominant and one is recessive. And that is going to be further explained when we look at the Punnett square example. So for this Punnett square, we're looking at two bananas. We have a yellow banana and we have a green banana. That's the phenotype. But the genotype is a dominant gene and a recessive gene that makes up that yellow. And then we have the yellow banana. And then we have 2 recessive genes which make up the green banana. And so we're trying to understand if we cross this yellow banana with the green banana, what would their offspring look like? So we see that 2 of the offspring are going to be yellow, and their genotypes they have a dominant and a recessive gene. This deals with the genetic principle, the dominant recessive genetic principle, in that anytime we have a dominant gene and a recessive gene together, the dominant gene is going to override the recessive gene, and whatever the dominant gene is expressed as a phenotype, that is what is going to be displayed in the offspring. So this yellow banana, because we have this yellow dominant gene, even though there is a green recessive gene, the yellow dominates the recessive gene. And so that is why those 2 offspring are yellow. Another example of the dominant recessive genetic principle is looking at these 2 offspring. We can see that the green banana is made up of 2 recessive genes. The only way that the recessive gene is going to show up in the phenotype is if you have 2 recessive genes together. So for here, we have 1 recessive gene, and then we have the other recessive gene. We have 2 recessive genes all together, and we have the phenotype of the green banana. See you all on the next video.